I was halfway through my second pina colada when the first voicemail rolled in. The Atlantic breeze was doing this thing where it just barely touched the skin, enough to remind me I still had a body and not just this hollow, aching space where my chest used to be. That's the kind of poetic nonsense you start thinking when you're freshly invisible to your own family. See, I wasn't invited to my sister's wedding. Not mistakenly overlooked. Not lost in the shuffle. Deliberately excluded. This was Emily, my little sister, the one I used to sneak into movie theaters with, who cried in my arms the night her college boyfriend dumped her. I changed her flat tire in the middle of a nor'easter once, for crying out loud. But apparently none of that made me wedding worthy. And it wasn't like I'd been some estranged black sheep. I was the dependable one. The one who showed up to every holiday dinner, fixed mom's faucet when it leaked, called dad through every one of his 5 surgeries. They always said I was the glue. Turns out glue doesn't get a table reservation. So I went to Cape May instead. Solo vacation. Booked the flight, got a beachfront rental, turned off all the notifications but one. That was the mistake. The twist came faster than expected. Less than an hour after the ceremony, my phone started buzzing. Messages from mom, from my aunt, even from my sister's best friend, who was clearly in the loop but too cowardly to call before the big day. Something had gone wrong. Big wrong. The groom walked out during the reception. Just left. No scene, no explanation, just walked out. Apparently, he'd had second thoughts. Some last-minute reckoning about Emily's intensity. That's the family-friendly term they use. I knew better. But here's where it gets twisted. They blamed me. Not directly. At first. But the text started turning. Questions about why I wasn't there. Accusations veiled in concern. As if my absence had created some cosmic imbalance and ruined her perfect day. As if I had that kind of power. I scrolled through the messages, took a sip of my cocktail, and snapped a picture of the ocean. Just the water, no caption. Sent it to the group chat. Then I powered off my phone and left it face down in the sand. Let them spin. Let them guess. For the first time in 44 years, I chose myself. And God help me, I didn't regret it. By the next morning, my inbox was a battlefield. Voicemails from mom, some long and pleading, others clipped and scolding. She'd started with, "We're just so worried about you," and ended with, "How could you do this to your sister?" Somewhere in the middle, she managed to call me selfish 3 different ways, one of them with tears. I didn't listen to all of them, just enough to get the gist. The kicker? They thought I'd planned it. Like I'd known the groom was going to bolt, and decided to twist the knife by not showing up. As if I had some inside scoop. As if I had that kind of control over other people's messes. But I didn't. I was sipping rum in a beach chair when the world decided to implode, and the wild part is, it felt like justice I didn't even ask for. See, Emily always knew how to get what she wanted. Always. She cried once at age 8 because I got the bigger piece of cake and mom made me give it to her. That's not a metaphor. That's my childhood. And weddings? Those are just another cake to cut. I guess when the groom saw what he was signing up for, the temper, the entitlement, the expectation that everyone orbit her like she's the sun, he flinched. And instead of asking why he ran, they asked why I wasn't there to catch him. It was absurd. Aunt Denise texted me a full paragraph about family duty. About showing up for your blood, even when it's hard. I almost responded. Almost. But instead, I posted a picture of my bare feet in the sand with the caption, "Some tides don't deserve saving." It wasn't even about being petty. Not really. It was about drawing a line. Finally. A line between what they expect of me and what I'm actually willing to give. And for the first time, I didn't care if they crossed it alone. By the time I checked the group chat again, it had devolved into chaos. There were over 100 unread messages. Most of them variations of concern mixed with barely concealed rage. Emily finally broke her silence. Her message was short, probably crafted in a fit of white-hot embarrassment. "I can't believe you couldn't even show up for me. You always make everything about you." That was rich. The bride who demanded matching napkins and a curated hashtag accusing me of attention-seeking? I almost laughed. Then mom chimed in again, trying to play both sides. Said something about how emotions were high and that Emily didn't mean what she said and that maybe I should reach out, be the bigger person. I almost replied with, "I've been the bigger person my whole damn life." Look where it got me. Instead, I left them on read. See, what they don't realize is that silence can be an answer. A full one. That photo of the ocean I sent. That was the most honest thing I'd said to them in years. I was at peace. Finally, away from their constant expectation, from being the problem solver, the peacemaker, the one who gets the least and gives the most. Let them squirm. Let Emily sit with her perfect flowers and her shattered fantasy. Let mom replay that voicemail and wonder when exactly she lost me. I didn't disappear. I just stopped being available. And somewhere between that third cocktail and the sun dipping low behind the dunes, I realized I didn't miss them. Not even a little. That was the part that hurt the most. Not their betrayal, but how easy it was to let them go. That afternoon, I went paddleboarding. First time in years. Rented the board from a guy named Kenny who looked like he hadn't stressed about anything since 1998. He didn't ask why I was alone, just handed me the paddle and wished me luck like I was heading into battle. The water was calm, the kind that doesn't fight you unless you give a reason. I stood there, knees shaky, and realized something stupidly simple. No one in my family had ever asked me what I wanted. Not once. Not when Dad needed rides to his appointments. Not when Emily needed help moving for the third time. Not when Mom started leaning on me to keep the peace. Every time a holiday, dinner turned sour. I was the default, the standby. The unspoken agreement was that I'd always be there, not because they loved me more, but because they knew I wouldn't leave. Turns out, that's not love. That's utility. And people don't mourn the loss of a tool. They just miss what it did for them. I stood out there for an hour, legs burning, eyes fixed on the horizon. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I wasn't even angry anymore. Life was colder, quieter, like the aftermath of a blizzard. The wreckage is there, but the wind's already gone. When I got back to shore, there were 3 more missed calls. Mom again, one from my uncle. Even Emily. Finally, a voicemail that started with my name and dissolved into some blend of crying and deflection. I didn't listen to any of them. I just turned my phone off again, dropped it into my bag, and walked to the edge of the beach where the dunes gave way to silence. I sat down, looked out at the sea, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel needed. I felt free. When I was 12, my mother told me being dependable was the most important trait a man could have. Not kind, not curious, not brave, dependable. Like a power outlet or a reliable weather forecast. I internalized that, wore it like armor. So I showed up to birthdays, to surgeries, to graduations I wasn't invited to, but paid for anyway. I filled in the cracks where my family crumbled. And in return, I was told I was strong, the rock, the anchor. Until I stopped. Then I became cold, bitter, distant, difficult. Funny how that works. I'd spent most of my life being the good son, the good brother. But that role has a shelf life when you're not also the favorite. Because at some point, your usefulness gets mistaken for stability. And stability? That's just another word for invisible. On the third night of my trip, I finally called someone. Not family. An old friend from college, Mike, who now lives in Denver. We hadn't talked in months. He didn't ask why I was at the beach alone. Just told me about his kids, his dog, and the fact he recently learned how to grill salmon without burning it. It was the best conversation I'd had in years. After we hung up, I sat in the dark on the porch of the rental house and listened to the waves. No phones, no apologies, just silence. The kind that doesn't need to be filled. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But all I felt was clarity, sharp, clean like salt in a cut. I was done trying to earn my place in a family that never noticed when I was already standing in the doorway. The wedding photos went up 3 days later. Aunt Denise posted them first. Then Emily followed with a carefully worded caption about celebrating love in all its forms, which was hilarious, considering half the photos were cropped awkwardly to hide the empty groom's chair. I studied them, not because I cared about the centerpieces or the dress, but because I wanted to see what my absence looked like. Turns out, I was everywhere. You can't erase someone who held your family together like duct tape. In every photo, there was a missing link, a gap in the lineup, an arm that should have wrapped around a shoulder, a space where a brother should have stood. I could almost hear their forced laughter. People kept commenting how beautiful everything looked, how radiant Emily was. No one asked about the groom. No one dared. But then I saw it, a comment from a distant cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. He simply wrote, "Where's the brother?" That was it. 5 words. No likes. No replies. But it landed like a hammer. And I couldn't help myself. I didn't respond with words. I posted a photo. Just a beach, my legs stretched out, a cocktail, sweating beside me. Captioned, exactly where I needed to be. No hashtags. No tags. Just truth. Within minutes, I was blocked. That was fine. Let them block me. Let them build a little bubble where the story still makes sense. Where Emily's day wasn't a disaster. Where I was the villain. Where the truth didn't sneak in like smoke through a cracked window. But I know what really happened. They cut me out, and the whole damn picture fell apart. There's this phrase people love to throw around. Blood is thicker than water. They say it like it's a binding contract. Like family gets a pass for everything. just because you share a last name or a childhood. But I've learned something: blood might run deep, but it doesn't mean it runs clean. You can give years, decades, to people who never asked how your heart was doing, who never wondered what you gave up to always be available. They'll call you selfish the moment you stop giving. That's what happened. After the wedding imploded and the group chat went quiet, the whispers started. I heard from a cousin that Emily was telling people I'd abandoned the family in a time of crisis, that I chose a vacation over my sister's most important day. And maybe that's true. I did choose. But what they don't mention is that the crisis wasn't mine. It never was. I wasn't the one who lost a fiancé. I wasn't the one building my whole identity around a single event. I was just the scapegoat, the easy name to blame when everything cracked under its own weight. I used to think being loyal meant staying silent, enduring, carrying the weight so others wouldn't have to. But loyalty without reciprocity, that's just servitude in a nice shirt. So no, I didn't show up for the disaster. I showed up for myself. And for once, that was enough. A week after the wedding, I got a voicemail from my mother I couldn't bring myself to erase. Most of the time, I delete them without listening. Just swipe away the guilt before it could settle. But this one, something in the preview caught my eye. It started with, "I don't know if you'll even listen to this," which, ironically, made me do exactly that. She sounded tired. Not dramatic tired, just worn thin, like someone who realized the old ways weren't working anymore. She said the house felt different now. Quieter. Emily wasn't answering her calls. Dad was retreating into his workshop more than usual. And suddenly, no one was talking about the wedding. Then she said something I hadn't expected. Maybe we were wrong. About how we handle things. About how much we expected of you. She didn't ask me to come back. Didn't beg. Just left the silence after that line, like a door she was too scared to knock on. I listened to it twice. Not because I needed comfort, but because it was the closest thing to truth I'd ever heard from her. And it broke something in me. Because part of me still wanted to be needed. Not as the fixer, the buffer, the ATM, but as the son, the human being, the boy who just wanted to be seen without having to earn it every time. But that ship had sailed. I saved the voicemail. Not to reply, not to use against her, just to remind myself that the truth, even whispered, is still worth hearing. The next morning, I walked the boardwalk in Cape May. Got a black coffee from a place that didn't ask for names, just nodded and poured. The seagulls screamed above like they were trying to fill all the space people left behind. I watched a father chase his kid across the sand. He was laughing, stumbling, his coffee forgotten in the rush. And I realized that's the kind of man I still want to be. Not perfect, not polished, but present. On the 8th day, I packed my bag to leave Cape May. No dramatic sunset forward, no symbolic gesture. Just zipped the suitcase, emptied the fridge, and left the keys on the counter like any other renter. But something in me didn't fit the way it used to. That version of me, the older brother who never missed a crisis, who returned every call, who bit his tongue at every slight. He wasn't in the bag I was packing. He stayed behind somewhere between the third cocktail and that voicemail I didn't delete. I drove home in silence. No music, no podcast, just road noise and the hum of everything I'd finally stopped carrying. When I walked into my apartment, it was exactly as I'd left it. A little dusty, mail piled by the door. My old hoodie on the back of the couch, half folded like I'd intended to come right back. But I hadn't. Not really. There was a message on my answering machine. Yes, I still have one from my dad. Short, measured, almost rehearsed. He said they missed me. Said the house was strange without me around. Then he cleared his throat and added, "I didn't realize how much you were doing until it all stopped." That was the apology. Or, at least, his version of it. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to call back. Not out of spite. Not even anger, just peace, a kind of quiet understanding that some things don't need to be fixed, they just need to be left behind. That night, I slept with the windows open. The city air was heavier than Cape May's, but it didn't matter. I was lighter. 2 weeks after I got home, a thick cream envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address, just my name written in delicate cursive, the kind of penmanship people save for wedding invites or guilt-ridden apologies. For a second, I thought maybe it was Emily. Some last-ditch effort to rewrite the story. An olive branch dipped in rose gold calligraphy. But it wasn't. It was from a coworker. Some engagement party. I stood in my hallway, envelope still in hand, and felt the smallest weight of disappointment I didn't know I was carrying. I've been expecting something that would never arrive, a note from Emily, maybe, or one from Mom saying she wanted to talk face-to-face. But nothing ever came. They moved on, I guess. Or maybe they were waiting for me to crawl back, like always. And I would have once. Even 6 months ago, I would have swallowed my pride, driven down, knocked on their door like a prodigal scapegoat returning with guilt and leftovers. But not anymore. Because here's what no one tells you. Sometimes you don't get closure from the people who hurt you. You get it the moment you stop needing them to give it. So I didn't reach out. I didn't forward the voicemail. I didn't explain my silence. I just lived it. That weekend, I went to the engagement party. Brought a six-pack and the right kind of indifference. Watched strangers slow dance under fairy lights and listened to a couple argue about their dog's diet like it was the biggest problem in the world. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was missing something. I didn't feel out of place. I wasn't the sibling who got left off the list. I wasn't the emotional handyman waiting for the next emergency call. I was just a man at a party. And it was enough. I didn't mean to end up in Cape May again. It just happened. One of those Saturdays where the city feels like it's pressing its full weight on your chest. The kind of quiet that doesn't soothe, only reminds you of what's missing. So I got in the car. No destination, no music, just me and the hum of the engine, the only sound that didn't ask anything of me. A few hours later, I was back on that same stretch of shore. Same worn-out boardwalk. Same seagulls screaming like the sky owed them something. But I wasn't the same. Last time I stood here, I was furious. Hurt in a way I couldn't even name. Grasping for some sense of control, try to prove to them, to myself, that I didn't need anyone. Now I just felt hollowed out. Not empty. Not sad. Just quiet. I walked the beach for an hour. Didn't take any pictures this time. No need. The scene hadn't changed. Only I had. There's something strange about letting go of people who still exist, who are still laughing somewhere, posting filtered memories, building lives that no longer include you. It's grief without ceremony, absence without flowers. You don't get closure. You get reminders, birthdays you don't text on anymore, group photos you're not tagged in, family news that reaches you third hand, if at all. And you carry that, not like a wound, like a scar you forgot was there until something brushes against it. I stayed until the sky turned orange. Didn't cry, didn't post, didn't say goodbye, because you only say goodbye when you think someone might follow you out the door. And no one was following.